Morning all, welcome to the garden. I'm going to begin this little clip by posing a question for you. How do you guys support your tomatoes? So that's the question I'm going to have. I'm going to pose that question at the end of this video too. But how do you support your tomatoes? And so let's get into it. Today we're going to talk about tomatoes, cages, stakes, and trellises, and basically how do you keep the tomatoes off the ground. We're expecting a decent rain tonight, and I've got some that aren't quite harnessed yet, aren't staked, aren't caged, and so I'm going to kind of talk about the methods that we use. This season we bumped our crop up from 55 Roma tomatoes last year to 75 Roma tomatoes, and I'm a little prideful in this. I'm a little prideful in this tomato crop, not because of the overall performance. I don't feel like they are my best looking crop as far as the green goes on them. But this all came from seed that I saved last year, and I've never had successful saving of my tomato seeds before, and so I'm very prideful in that. They've done really well considering how much rain we had here in Michigan at the late spring. So I support most of my tomatoes using a cage, and this is steel remesh wire, and steel remesh wire is 5 foot wide, and it comes in 8-foot pieces, 50-foot pieces, or 50-foot rolls, or 150-foot rolls. And I can usually get 150 foot of this for, I want to say if you get the 11% off sale, right around $102. And then you can, I might be off on that, but it's right around that. And then you can, each ring is 9 squares is what I do. And then 5 foot worth of wire, you wrap it around, you bend it up, cut off the bottom so they stick 6 inches of this wire into the ground. And I'm on a sandy, loamy area here in this front veggie garden. They stick well. They support really well. If you're in clay, good luck. You better hit it while it's wet. And so this is the option. Now, this works well for 72 of my plants, mind you, but I had 3 latecomers, and these are not going to be impressive by any means, but they need to be harnessed. They're starting to do a lean. In fact, this one's starting to really lean over, and then I've got 2 other ones back in the squash patch that they're doing much better, and they need to be harnessed up. So, the first method I want to talk about is a trellis. Now, I've got this trellis that is just a cattle panel, and I will run. I got some cucumbers on there. We had some spring peas on there earlier. And so I've just, as these little volunteers have been popping up, I've just been, you find them while you're weeding. I've been moving them in and putting them right along this panel. And these little tomatoes won't be much. They'll give us some tomatoes to eat probably later into the fall. They won't be part of the canning supply, the sauce crew, but they will be there. And as they climb up, we will just support them against that trellis. So a trellis is an option. The trellis is really nice looking. It helps you keep a straight row. I'm sure you could stagger on either side of the trellis, but I found this one, or I forget, I did not purchase that one. I think I traded something for that one, but that's a more expensive cattle panel just because of the spacing. Come over here, you could use one of these, and you can see I put chicken wire along the bottom of it to keep rabbits out. But that panel is about $19–20, and that would work well. So that's a clean option. And if you look at you know, how much cages cost, how much stakes cost, this trellis might actually be a cost-effective method. So we talked about my giant tomato cages. We talked about this trellis, and the big thing is you want to have good support, but you want to have you want it to be cost effective. You don't want to waste money. Because I feel like so much in my early days of gardening, and even today, I waste money because I don't know better. I don't have, heck, I barely have a decade of experience, and every year I've bettered. So I still have some of these, and these were advertised at the Menards as tomato cages. And I thought, well, that's a great price. I forget what they were, maybe $1.50 a piece. Well, it makes sense why they're $1.50 a piece. Do not buy these for tomatoes. These would probably be really great in to hold up flowers, or possibly even peppers. But tomatoes, unless you got some puny tomatoes, they're not gonna hold the weight. Especially you get a little rain and wind, and when it starts fruiting, it starts to weigh more. So I have these, not sure, thought about using some. And these actually had wire that would come way out here, and you had to jam all that into the ground, and not the best option. They do sell heavier cages, but heavier cages, you're dropping a little more coin. Also early, as we kept bumping up, we'd bump up more plants, but we didn't necessarily have the resources for that. So I went out into the woods. I found this old relic in the wood stack the other day, and I think we're starting to sprinkle. And so what I did was I cut some saplings, took the hatchet, and I just made a stake, and that worked well. In fact, it worked well supporting these cages, which didn't make sense really, but that I have to support a cage with a stake, but I did it. And so that's another option. Probably the one I'm leaning towards is just a small steel post. I won't interfere with too much of the roots. They're pretty stiff. You get 8–10 inches of that in the ground, and that is a pretty good option. These are inexpensive. I think they're $1.50 or $2 a piece. And honestly, stuff like this is great Craigslist find. Then you got the giant T-posts. And I think I bought 50 of these a year ago, maybe 2 years ago, off a guy off Craigslist, and he was 5–6 miles down the road, and he wanted $1.25 a piece for these, and so I took as much as I could afford. And these are a good option. And when I was young, teenage, early 20s, I'd go down and visit my grandfather near St. Louis, and early summer I would drive T-posts for him around his tomatoes, and he'd sit there with the level and he'd make sure they're perfectly plumb. He was that kind of guy. He wanted them perfectly plumb. And so these are an option, depending on your soil. If you're in clay, good luck. If you're in sand, they'll drive in pretty good. But these are all options. So what am I going to use? honestly, I'm probably just going to use a mashup. I'm going to use what I have. Like I said, I've got five more plants. I'm probably not going to use those puny little cages. I'm probably going to use some wooden stakes. I'm probably going to use some of those intermediate style steel stakes. And that's probably the method that I'm going to use, because I just need to make sure that those additional plants don't hit the ground. But like I said at the beginning of this video, my question for you guys is, what do you use? What do you use? Because, you know, when I run the numbers of that trellis, that cattle panel, I think that's pretty good pricing. But I've got this, got to work with it. But, you know, not only supporting the plant, but then coming along and weeding the plant. You know, you got to look at more than just upfront cost. So, hey, this is Joe. Thanks for the conversation. Thanks for joining us, supporting us, and thanks for letting me learn from most of you guys. So take care. Enjoy the day. Bye.